Okay, so this video will be looking at the four types of bone cells. So they are the osteogenic cells, osteoblast, osteocytes, and osteoclast. So let's look at the general function of each one here. First of all, osteogenic cells, they come from stem cells, which means it comes from mesenchyme. Mesenchyme is the main cell all connective tissue turn into, and bone is a connective tissue. So the osteogenic cell are the baby cells, and these cells are always dividing or in a state of mitosis. Some professors like to say that on exams. Osteoblasts are bone building, and they don't divide. They don't go in a state of mitosis. And you want to think about the osteoblast like the word be there, build. Osteoblasts, bone building, meaning that these are kind of the firemen that are sort of spraying out that extracellular matrix, creating new bone, blasting out. Osteocytes are required for are related to bone maintenance, meaning this is the stage when the bone cell is just functioning. It's just doing the regular day-to-day activity, and it's not dividing, and it's not creating new bone, and it's not tearing down bone. It's just sitting there like a security guard, just doing the day-to-day routines of the bone cell. The osteoclast is bone breaking. You almost want to think about it as osteoclast, that word C, clasting, like cut, bone breaking, and these cells also do not divide. Now, again, as I mentioned before, the osteogenic cells, they come from mesenchyme. You can do your own little Google search on that just to be clear, but just remember the osteogenic cells are the baby bone cells, basically. The osteoblast, now again, as I said, they're bone building, which means they secrete bone matrix. I'm just saying this in a different way because this is how some professors put it on the exam. Bone building. Also, it could be bone deposition. Sometimes you see that in textbooks as well. Now, the osteocytes are related to nutrient exchange, meaning they're doing the day-to-day maintenance of allowing nutrients in, taking waste out. Again, they're not breaking down bone, they're not building bone, they're just doing the day-to-day functions of what the bone needs each day. The bone maintenance, that's the osteocyte. And the osteoclasts are secreting acid and enzymes. Now remember, the osteoclast is cutting out bad bone or diseased bone, for example. And so it makes sense that they're secreting acid because acid and enzymes normally are breaking up stuff. So this is what they are doing in terms of bone breaking. Now, we also have another concept related to the bone cells. It's called bone cell differentiation. When you see this differentiation, it just means one cell turning into another cell. But differentiation is a nice fancy word that we use. So first of all, you have osteogenic cells. Again, these are the stem cells. Osteogenic cells turn into osteoblast. So they start out as sort of a baby, and then they grow up as a teenager, so to say, and this turns into an osteoblast. Now, once it's an osteoblast for a little while, then that osteoblast turns into an osteocyte. Now it's a grown adult now. And osteocytes, by the way, these are the majority of bone cells. So if you took a piece of a bone or whatever and you put it under a microscope and you wanted to check, what is the majority of the bone cells, the majority of them are osteocytes. These are in the majority. Now, it stops there. Osteocytes do not turn into osteoclasts. No. Osteoclasts are in a class by themselves. So once the osteocyte it goes from the osteogenic cells to the osteoblasts to the osteocytes. After the osteocytes, that's it. It's going to stay there for a little while, then it's going to die, and that's it. It does not turn into the osteoclast. So what's the point here? The osteoclast, they are coming from monocytes, which means immune cells. Now that's logical because if osteoclasts are coming from immune cells and they're bone breaking, that's the job of the immune system. One part of the job of the immune system is detoxing and taking out the bad stuff. So it makes sense why the osteoclasts are secreting enzymes and acid, and they come from immune cells, because immune cells are the cleanup crew. They're cleaning up the mess and getting out the bad stuff. Okay, so let's do some repetition now. How many types of bone cells are there? 4. Which bone cells come from stem cells called mesenchyme and always divide? Osteogenic cells. Which bone cells secrete collagen, bone matrix, and are bone building? Osteoblast. Which cells are responsible for nutrient exchange and metabolism? Osteocytes. Which bone cells secrete acid enzymes and are bone breaking? Osteoclast. Which bone cells do osteogenic cells turn into? Osteoblast. Which bone cells do osteoblast turn into? Osteocytes. Which bone cells are the majority? Osteocytes. Which bone cells are made of monocytes? Osteoclast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,